Okay, welcome everyone. We're going to get started in just a moment here. I see we're live on YouTube. We've got our Zoom audience coming in. Thanks for joining us today. Just going to verify a couple of things, and then I'll introduce our guest today. And yes, he needs an introduction. He deserves one every time. Okay, welcome to the Friday webinar, everybody. I know it's been a couple of weeks since we've had one, and I'm glad you could join me again here. It's Friday, March 1st, and today we're going to have Christopher Norton talking about his new video, MicroLessons. He's going to also join us a week from now to do much the same. This is part 1 of 2 here. And after March 8th and March 15th on the Friday, we're going to take that week off. It's the March break here in Ontario, and I sense it'd be hard to get an audience. And not only that, it's also hard to get a guest to come on. But Friday, March 22nd, I've secured Dr. Scott Price from University of South Carolina is going to come and talk to us about his latest book, which I happen to have here. I picked up in the summer, Autism and Piano Study. Really great book. He's got all sorts of really neat videos that he's going to show us and develop a vocabulary about teaching students with special needs. And I think you're going to find that really interesting. I know since we launched that information yesterday on the email list, a lot of you have already registered for that. So it's great to see. And we'll keep promoting that, but that'll be on the 22nd. At the end of the month, March 29th, that's Good Friday, so we won't have a session that day, but following that on April 5th, I've got a composer, Brock Chart from the US, who's going to join us and talk to us about his interesting books, and I'll give you more information on that later. This is the first time I'm announcing that today, but I've listened to his music recently and really come to like it. He's got all sorts of contemporary styles that I think you'll find interesting and engaging. So I'll show you what that music looks like later in a subsequent email in a couple of weeks. But to the matter at hand today, we've got Chris here who's going to show us all about MicroLessons. And he's featuring pieces that we find are on our contemporary repertoire list, which includes almost everything Chris has written for piano. There were a few holes here and there that we're going to work to plug and get them on the syllabus lists. But these are some of the most popular pieces from Connections, from the Micro series. Chris will show you what all these books look like, walk us through it. And if you like what you see, join us again next Friday and tell everyone else to join us next Friday too for part 2 of this little mini series. So Chris, thanks for joining us today, and I'll turn it over to you.
And I'm going to be talking, I'll probably go up to grade 5 in a very general way in this session today. And then next week we'll start slightly later, i.e. perhaps grade 4 up to grade 8 or even grade 9. So what I'm saying, I'm doing the easier pieces today as a feature. How the micro lessons came about, by the way, is that I do lots of master classes, and and quite a bit of the time when you do a master class, you have like 20 children all in a row ready to go, and the organizers are basically saying you've got 5 minutes for each person, or even worse, less. And so sometimes I realize there's something wrong with the way the students approaching the piece stylistically or technically, and I have to quickly get to the heart of the matter. And I've discovered a lot of the time that if you do, that the students find it incredibly useful for playing the piece and for playing other music. So they pick up a nugget of information about a technical matter. And so these micro lessons, they're a little bit about interpretation, but they're largely concentrating on technical matters, as you'll see in a moment. One thing I should say at the beginning, I'm going to say again at the end, which is very exciting, and do comment even as we go about this, is that I'm covering certain pieces today, but next week I'm doing another seminar on micro lessons, and you can email me. I've got the email at the end of the presentation if you'd like me to do particular pieces. So I'll do my best to actually include some requests. I think that's the way to put it.
That's a great idea. Great idea. If anyone has any questions in the meantime too, just throw them in the chat box and we'll stop and we'll answer those as we go along.
Yeah. So I've got a little presentation. The reason I've got the presentation pre-done is that it's hard to get the right sound, as you know, with Zoom and the way we've set it up. I think you'll get a good sound and good picture straight away. So I'm going to share my screen and move to the sort of official bit of the presentation. And then, of course, at the end, if you've got any questions or observations, do show yourselves, and we'll be more than happy to. I'll be more than happy to hopefully answer some of them. Okay. So here comes the share bit. This is exciting. And here comes the little presentation. So, by the way, that's my grandson. He lives in Toronto and he's now 14, but he's still playing the piano and saxophone and clarinet and trumpet. So he's doing very well. But and there's me giving him a little micro lesson. But these are short lessons at home on examination pieces from the composer. That's the way to put it. And repertoire doesn't include everything that I'm talking about now today, but it will ultimately include American popular piano because there's a lot of pieces in there listed on the syllabus. And I think there's a lot of little gems in there which perhaps need revisiting or you know, re putting into your consciousness. That will cover, I think, level 1 to level 8 pieces. So I'll come back to that, and hopefully that will include some use of backing tracks as well. Then the second thing I'm going to be talking about, or rather I'm showcasing today, is micro ballads, which is on the syllabus, and we've got a piece for micro ballads to look at. Micro Latin, micro rock, and micro swing. Now, you probably are all aware of the fact that these books are all about grade 2, 3. Derek, I don't know if you could interpose while I'm speaking, but is that correct? Would you regard those in that sort of level?
Yeah, micro rock is definitely 2, 3, 4. Actually, there's a couple near the end where we have them in grade 6.
Yeah.
Micro swing, same thing, going up to about level 5 or 6. Micro Latin's a little bit beyond there, even a couple of 7s.
Yeah.
And ballads tends to run the whole range as well.
I think the pieces I've chosen today are quite easy ones, so they'll be nearer the grade 2, 3 end, hopefully. But of course, when we do another seminar, I may find that I might do examples of the more difficult pieces from those later books. So anyway, these are going to be covered by micro lessons quite soon, and I've made a start already. And then you've got connections 1 to 10. That's just a sort of snippet of what the book covers look like. But I was interested to see that connections is listed as any piece in the connections book from that level. Is that right, Derek?
That's
Like level
correct.
1, grade 1, level 2, grade 2, and so on.
We keep
And
it
of course,
simple.
there are now 10 levels and a preparatory book as well. So that I am definitely covering quite a few connections pieces, and that's what I'm partly doing today. So you'll be seeing me talking about some of the connections pieces. And then Microjazz Collection 1. I'll talk to Derek about the other Microjazz collections because there are 5 collections altogether. And you've got pieces listed on your syllabus at level 1, but there are some pieces which have become absolute standard repertoire, like Intercity Stomp being a famous one, and Play It Again in other examination syllabuses around the world. And it'd be nice to gradually snare some of those as well. But Microjazz Collection 1, anyway, will be also covered for the present Conservatory Canada syllabus. That's the way to put it, I think. And the Microstyles collection is actually a piece on your syllabus, which is one of my favorites, called Oriental Flower. And so I will definitely be doing a little micro lesson on that. And then country preludes, jazz preludes, Latin preludes, you'll love this, rock preludes, and Eastern preludes. So there are actually 5 books of those. These are all up at the top end. But there are some very popular pieces from students' comments and teachers' comments from these preludes books. Rock Preludes has been out for a long time, but one of the pieces has become an absolutely worldwide sensation in its own way. That's Jingo from the Rock Preludes, which is a grade 8 piece in the European system. So it's probably about a grade 10 piece here. But I will definitely be doing a number of pieces from each of these preludes books shortly as well. And then the Idaho suite, I was pleased to see that there are 4 pieces available as choices on your syllabus from the Idaho suite. This is a very advanced book. It's getting harder and harder as we go up the scale. These are 6 character pieces written for students at the University of Idaho. And I actually got videos from the students in which they talked about themselves. They didn't play the piano or anything. They just talked about themselves. And then I wrote pieces based on my assessment of their personalities. So it was actually like a Schumann style project, you might say. And then the Jazz Piano Sonata, which is listed right at the top of your syllabus, and it's becoming more and more popular. And in fact, if people are following my Facebook page will see that there's a number of performances of this have happened recently with a very fine Japanese pianist in London, England, but also in Tokyo next week, I think. So this is getting quite a lot of performances around the world now, which is lovely. So here I go straight into the examples. And the first one I'm going to do is Connections 1 Seabird. Now, I've got a piano here, and just say yes if you can hear me all right, but this is the right hand. Yeah.
Yep, that sounds clear.
Okay. Now, you notice there's various things in this. When I talk to students about looking at a piece like this for an examination or just for learning it, it starts soft. So it starts off at a piano, and I quickly scan the score, obviously, to see how loud it gets at its loudest. And there's a mezzo piano in the second section and a crescendo up to mezzo forte. And then the whole piece effectively kind of does the same thing again. Piano, slight crescendo, but this time up to mezzo forte rather than going to mezzo piano in between, diminuendo, and down to piano at the end. And then the other thing, it's got pedal one a bar, basically. So there's a couple of things which are worthy of note just looking at the score. Here's, though, the first micro lesson. So this is what it looks like when you see the micro lesson on this piece. I like the logo.
Welcome to today's micro lesson, which is on Seabird from Connections 1. This is an ethereal piece. It's in 3, and it's also in a rather unusual mode, which I'll describe in a moment. But here's Connections 1, and here's what Seabird sounds like. So first of all, this piece is in the Dorian mode, so it's all white notes from D to D, so it gives it a very distinctive sound. Secondly, the left hand, drop, rise, rise, so I do a slight drop on the first note and then quiet on the second and third notes. And at the pedal, that's the effect. Don't ever make it too heavy, because of course it needs to be below the level of the right hand, which is only marked at piano. So really think pianissimo, but still have that little drop and rises like that. And the right hand should really sing out, but also have that shape which basically starts quite strong and gradually ebbs away each time. It's like it's flying and suddenly just flies without having to do anything with its wings, so to speak. In other words, it's just using the air draft at that point. It really is a picture of a bird where it suddenly soars because of wind underneath it. So just a thought. It starts piano and then goes to mezzo piano here, but in fact there's a crescendo going on here. So you get to there, mezzo forte, and then starts to ebb away. You can even pull the timing back slightly as you come into the restatement. And then the restatements at piano again builds up to mezzo forte, so it's got a nice sort of shape which is the same both sides, if you like. Only the second time around, of course, the diminuendo lasts longer and it also gets slower. And there's some quite interesting pedaling marked here. I noticed near the end it goes pedal. That means you can let your right hand go. And same here, pedal. So the pedal's actually holding something and to enable your hand to move to another position. So that's quite a useful piece of pedaling, which is marked in the copy there as well. So I really hope you'll soar when you play this piece. Thanks for listening. Do like and subscribe. See you on the next micro lesson. Bye for now.
So Derek,
Yes.
I've just gone out of share for a moment just to see whether or not there's any particular comments you wanted to make, or any of the participants. Just that's what they're like. You can see it's covering quite a bit of ground, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's coming across perfectly. We can hear it really well.
That's good.
And I know one person's asking, how do we access the micro lessons? Is it by subscription?
Actually, you'd be pleased to hear it's not. They're well, in a sense, they're all now. The first 32 of them are on my YouTube channel, which is called Christopher Micro Jazz. And basically, if people would like to subscribe to that site, they'll be updated when new ones come up. But I'm not charging for them. They're basically just up there as part of that YouTube service, so to speak.
Right.
Okay, should we go on to the next one?
Sure.
So here's sharing again, and back to this here. And that was Seabird. Now, the next one is a more rhythmic piece. So let's see what this is like. Our Top Man from Micro Swing. Here's what that looks like. And again, the moment I quite like looking at a score and taking a quick glance. I can notice there's a double forte marked in there, which is rather fun. And in fact, there's a crescendo following the double forte, which means you even louder than double forte. The piece starts mezzo forte, goes up to forte, and then it really is quite strong. And the left hand is that sound. And I'm going to be talking about that in the micro lesson in a moment, because that's a very specific technique which I use to play that. And then the phrasing, of course. So here's the micro lesson on Top Man.
Welcome to today's micro lesson, which is on Top Man from Micro Swing. This is a minor key swing piece, obviously, as it implies, and a stomping left hand as well. It's good fun. Here's the cover of Micro Swing, and here's what this piece sounds like. So pretty extrovert ending, isn't it? But you're starting mezzo forte with that left hand like that. I'm just bouncing off the bottom of the key and a very relaxed wrist indeed. And that's the sound and also the movement you should be making. By the time it gets to forte, you're still bouncing, but there's a bigger drop, and then double forte, bigger still. You've got more arm movement if you like, but you're still making basically the same movement. The right hand, very specific phrasing. I start with a drop, and then I bounce my way out of the second note like that, and then bounce, and then drop, and that's a slur which ends with the last note like that, floats away. So every phrase should be done with that sort of movement in mind, and you can see there's lots of rests on the piece, and you really, I almost take my hand off. I'm not necessarily advising that, but I'm just saying it's that relaxed, if you like, that you're in the air, or you're away from the position completely, and then you come back to it with a nice drop. The piece builds, of course, double forte, and by the time you get there, that's the sound you want to make. And I'm dropping on the first note, but in fact I'm kind of dropping on the second note on the way up, like that. Here it is, and ending, of course. And I love the fact that I'm actually in the air completely and then hit the last chord, because I've managed to find it from being in the air and creating an arc to it, if you like. So have a lot of fun with this Top Man and see if you can give a really extrovert performance. Thanks for listening. Do like and subscribe. See you in the next micro lesson. Bye for now.
So on to the piece from Micro Rock called In the Groove. This is an interesting one as well. And again, glancing at the score, you can tell straight away it's a mezzo forte to forte piece. There's not really anything louder than that. So it's quite a sort of easygoing style, if you like. You can tell straight away when you hear it what the style is as well. It's a very distinctive style, this one. So here's the little lesson on it.
Welcome to the next micro lesson, which is on In the Groove from Micro Rock. All the pieces in Micro Rock are kind of groovy, but this one actually has the word groove in the title as well, which is rather exciting. So here's my performance of In the Groove. Oh, and that's the cover, by the way, Micro Rock. Here we go. Now, the left hand has these accents, and in fact, how I play it, you're playing it more or less with the same movement, but you have a drop of the arm. And don't make it too big a drop, or you don't want it to be too accented. It's really just that. It's like a boom, bang, it's like a snare drum. Once that's automatic, nice arm weight on this right hand melody, and I tend to leave a little space before the repeated note, like that. That's the sort of sound I like to have on that. That's mezzo forte, and again that's got that same drop of the arm as you get the accent, and then drops again. Now this is rather fun. When you get to the second section, it's like a choppy guitar offbeat. And everything is dropping in the same way, except you've got three hands, you've got three notes in one hand, and you've got one note in the other hand, but they move except the right hand staccato. So you got to, there's a little trick there, you've got to try and keep that element of sustain in your left hand, but the right hand. So don't make the right hand too loud, don't accent them, but make them just a nice positive drop like that. Okay, and the piece curiously gets quieter and quieter towards the end, so it's like the whole band is suddenly being told to get quieter and quieter before the very final. And of course that last one is a nice drop for both hands as well. That's a good piece to play with the rhythm section, of course. There is a backing track for this available. Do seek it out. And good luck with In the Groove. Thanks for listening. Do like and subscribe. See you on the next micro lesson. Bye for now.
And here is Sugarcane from Connections 2. So I'm going back to Connections for this. And this is a very different style. Again, glance at the score that you can see on your screen. It's a mezzo forte piece which goes up to forte and ends up at double forte at the end. And there's a lot of very specific articulation as well, which I'll be talking about in a moment. So here's the little lesson on Sugarcane.
Today's micro lesson is on Sugarcane from Connections 2, which is a minor key swing piece, which sounds like it's got a banjo player in the band. Here's Connections 2, and here comes my performance of Sugarcane. Now that's a very syncopated piece, isn't it? Phrasing, I'm definitely going with a drop and a rise there. And then drop, 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 rise, rise. So all the time have the shape of the phrase in your very flexible wrist. The right hand should slightly dominate, the left hand accompanying like a cello. And you've got these rather interesting accents as well. So drop with the arm slightly on those accents as they come up. The next section is rather fun because you get this, and it's very important that you drop on the first note with an accent, but the second note doesn't get an accent. That's the sound. Not. Some people are slightly tempted to try and drop on the second note, but don't rise on the second note, or second chord in this case. Okay. Now the left hand takes over, and the right hand should have that real bounce to the bottom of the key, like that. Keep it very, very bouncy and as light as you can in context. Of course, it's forte, but the right hand should be mezzo forte or so. And then that's getting more and more movement from the arm there as you get towards this incredible double forte at the end. So there's a lot of character in this piece, and of course it's expressed largely through articulation and dynamics. So do watch them, do look at them carefully. Thanks. Do like and subscribe. See you on the next micro lesson. Bye for now.
Chris, do you want to stop for questions as we go, or wait
Yes,
till-
yes. That's people have got the idea now. You can see there's quite a lot of detail in there. Somebody's asked a question, by the way, about the key in the groove. I would have said it was in G, not G minor, but in G. Is it? I hope that's an answer.
That's what I would say as well. Do you see the question before that on how to explain swing rhythm to a student when first presenting it?
Yeah, I mean, in broad terms, I would say long, short, if you like. But that's why the micro lessons are quite useful, because people can actually hear the way I'm phrasing it and playing it, if you like, in terms of the rhythm of the piece. And funnily enough, there's quite a few pieces in my oeuvre which are shuffle pieces, which is like a harder 12/8, if you like, than swing is. So I do talk about that as well. But I can only say that swing, somebody says cherry, cherry. Yeah, there are various ways of doing this. I will certainly try and address that somewhat when it comes up. I haven't really talked about that particularly on this, apart from playing the piece myself, so you can actually see how it's done, and also the way I phrase it, because I think sometimes the phrasing is quite swing phrasing, where you've got that kind of strong and then weak, but you've got a shorter note on the second note. But sometimes it can go the other way, of course, and you can have an accented second note as well. The question's still coming up out in the groove. The F natural, it's really kind of, a lot of my pieces actually are mixolydian, so it's like a G major with an F natural scale, I think, which has been used to a certain extent in this particular piece. So that's good. So shall I go on?
Yeah, that sounds good.
But you can see there's plenty of content there, and that's why your comments are helpful in a way, because I can also sort of, in the back of my mind, incorporate some of these things. I haven't talked particularly, in fact, about the keys. I've talked about the Dorian mode in one of them. I've now mentioned there's a mixolydian element in the groove, but I'll try and do that as well. Now, here and there, as it gets to later pieces, of course, I may start to talk a bit about some of the harmonies that are used as well, but these early ones, that's not such a big thing. Okay, so on with the show. So here's the next one up is Broxburn Lament from Micro Ballads. This is an interesting piece because I'm quarter Scottish, and Broxburn is a little town south of Edinburgh where my grandmother came from. So it's got a sort of autobiographical element to it, if you like, but it is like a little Scottish tune. And so there's what it looks like on the screen, and here's a little micro lesson on it.
Welcome to today's micro lesson, which is on Broxburn Lament from Micro Ballads. Broxburn is south of Edinburgh in Scotland, and it's where my grandmother came from, so there's a family connection to this piece. Here's what micro ballads look like, and here comes Broxburn Lament. So, suitably Scottish, I think. Now, I don't pedal the grace note. So I actually play that without the pedal, but very legato, like that, and then put the pedal down. And I'm pedaling more or less one a bar, so no pedal, pedal once you've played, and then pedal, pedal, no pedal, pedal. You get the idea. You've got to experiment a little bit with how you do the pedaling here, because you don't want to have the grace notes pedaled at all. They want to be played very legato, but you do want the pedal to be there, kind of joining the whole thing together. So that's the first thing. The second thing, of course, is the tune starts on the right hand, but immediately those marcato marks, or tenuto marks rather, in the left hand, that's part of the melody. So the tune itself is so they're not just chords in the left hand, but they're actually melody notes. So you're really sharing the tune between the two hands. Start the piece mezzo piano, and then here the bagpipes really are joining in when you're at the forte. So that's a lovely effect. It stays there for a good while, you might say, and then drops down to piano again and gradually disappears into the distance. So it is a little lament, and it's a bit like a pipe tune in that sense, which you need to think of the Scottish background to this piece to really feel like you're doing it right, I think. Thanks for listening. Do like and subscribe. See you on the next micro lesson. Bye for now.
And then from the Latin book, Moonlit Encounter. Again, this is not a particularly difficult piece. I would say this is probably about grade 3 at the most, but it's a rather lovely piece to play with the backing track. And I know conservative piano have this wonderful notion that you can play with the backing track in the exam, and they even recommend that you practice with it as well. And this gives a whole new spin to this piece when you try it with the track. But here's a little lesson to see what you think.
Welcome to today's micro lesson, which is called Moonlit Encounter from MicroLatin. Here's what MicroLatin looks like, and I'll take you straight into the sound of this particular piece, Moonlit Encounter. So that's a mysterious little piece, isn't it? A moonlit encounter, in fact. So left hand, very, very carefully placed, like that. So you're kind of keeping that under the level of the right hand, which is only piano anyway. And the right hand, very legato, and slightly shape the phrase the way it looks. So I'm building to that and then coming away like that, and then again. More, and away again. So you can see the shape of the phrase is written very clearly with all the hairpins and so on. Look at the dynamics as well. Starts piano, builds a little bit, in fact, to mezzo forte, and then it does it again. So the same thing is mirrored, and then the ending starts piano and has a slight crescendo to the last chord, which is mezzo forte. So it's all working in a piano to mezzo forte kind of range. thinking about the pedaling, I put the pedal down before I start. Pedal, pedal. So I'm keeping more or less one bar. But here, I'm actually pedal, 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 no pedal, 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 pedal. So you get the idea that you're trying to use the pedal to colour it, but also at places where you could do with a bit of help with joining things together. So it's a very simple little piece really, but it should be played very precisely and with great refinement, which I'm sure you've got. Thanks for listening. Do like and subscribe. See you in the next micro lesson. Bye for now.
So again, Derek, I'm just coming out for a moment to see if there's any other comments or observations which people would like to make just before we do have a look at the last little section.
Not seeing any new questions yet.
Yeah.
It's sounding great.
Yeah, but it's all pretty clear, isn't it? How they
It
work.
is.
Yeah. So shall I continue?
Yep, that sounds good.
I've got up to the wilds of grade 2 now, I think, or maybe grade 3. So you can tell we're starting to get into slightly more advanced pieces here. So here we go, back to sharing. And this is an interesting one because this has proved to be very popular. Have you discovered that, Derek, that this is a piece students have gravitated towards?
What piece is it?
Rainforest.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. My
Yeah.
students love this piece.
And this is only grade 3, but it creates quite a startling effect if you get it right. And most students I've heard do get it right, so which is rather nice. So here's the little lesson on it.
Oh, I think you got to initiate screen sharing again.
Oh, sorry, my fault. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't know what I did there, but anyway, here it is. You seeing that?
Yeah, that looks clear now.
Yeah, there it is. So one of the interesting things about this piece is, you notice the last note of the piece is the bottom note of the piano, which is already quite intriguing, and it's pianissimo, so it's like a real tolling of a bell at the end there. So here is Rainforest, little micro lesson on Rainforest.
Welcome to today's micro lesson, which is on Rainforest from Connections 3, a mysterious and very evocative piece. And here is Connections 3, and here's what Rainforest sounds like. Isn't that wonderful, being able to play the last note on the piano, the very lowest note of the piano is what I mean, pianissimo there, and letting it really ring on. So it's a very dramatic effect, especially on a grand piano. Now, first of all, I put the pedal down before I start and keep it down. Take it up as I play that little note and straight down as you play the next long note. So that's the first thing. So pedaling is a bit like that, where you basically release the pedal slightly as you get the shorter note before the next long note. Also notice that the long note in bar 3 has third finger changing to thumb. And then the same thing happens here. Change to thumb. Now here's a very important point. When you get to this, I don't have any pedal on this, it's just legato in my hand. So from the beginning, pedal, there's a pedal again, pedal, no pedal, pedal. So that's quite tricky, but you do need to have no pedal on that, otherwise it's going to be a very over resonant sound. So that needs to be just legato in your hand. You start the piece mezzo piano and you notice that it gradually starts to move up to mezzo forte, drops back down again, up again. But the middle section is a little bit stronger, although it's marked mezzo forte, it definitely has a sort of brighter feel to it. And I quite like the idea, I did it a bit there, before you come to the restatement, just ease the tempo back slightly before you come back in to the final. And of course here, no pedal, pedal, and then no pedal, pedal. Keep the pedal going, and change your finger as well. And then the bottom note is actually caught on the pedal as well. So there's a lot of quite tricky little things to do there, but they're really worth it. It's a very startling effect for an audience if you get it right, which I'm sure you will. Thanks for listening. Do like and subscribe. See you in the next micro lesson. Bye for now.
And in the time I've got left, I'll just go on to the wilds of grade 4. This is Bedbug Blues. It's nice to actually have a piece which is in a more bluesy kind of style. So I'm mentioning this. I'll be doing more on this kind of level next week, but I thought it was nice to just show a couple of examples which are slightly harder. So here's Bedbug Blues, and on to the micro lesson.
Welcome to today's micro lesson, which is on Bedbug Blues from Connections 4. This is a classic old style blues in B flat. Here's what Connections 4 looks like, and here comes my performance of Bedbug Blues. So make sure it's got a real steady pulse, this piece. You want to feel as though you have got a drummer playing with you and doing it. So that even the beginning with these long chords, you can hear somebody's keeping a backbeat going there. It's certainly in the back of your mind there. Play this line very, very legato. And don't ever accent the last note of the phrase. Always start with a slight drop. Here's another drop. You notice I'm shaping each phrase towards the end of the phrase slightly like that. Make sure the grace notes are very, very light and very quick, like that. And then you're leaning into that and giving a bit of arm weight as you do that crescendo. They then go up a step to mezzo forte, and in fact we get all the way to forte, and then a very nice contrast with mezzo piano. And quite a lot of it I don't use pedal. But when you do use pedal, you can sometimes just use it because you've got a jump coming, and so on. So use pedal sparingly. You notice in the second half, the left hand, I really make that really detached and very light. So you've got very much a singing sound above that. That's the sound if you can do it. It gets slightly heavier, of course, so that by the time it gets to forte, the chords in the left hand are getting a bit longer as well, but that's the sort of effect I like. And the very end is an interesting thing, there's a change of finger, 3, 2, 1, but you then change to 5, because you've got to go So you've got to get used to the idea that you might get to your thumb and then immediately be moving to your fifth finger so that you can play the next note with your thumb. And then same again, actually, not changing finger, but fifth finger, thumb. So some little pointers there for Bedbug Blues. That's a lot of fun to play and as a real traditional blues. Thanks for listening. Do like and subscribe. See you on the next micro lesson. Bye for now.
And then this is an interesting one. We're going up to grade 5, and I'm just about to, and then with my little description of these here. But this is one with an ostinato left hand. It's quite a tricky piece and needs help with the pedal as well as a very legato left hand. So here's the little lesson on floating.
Welcome to today's micro lesson, which is on floating from Connections 5. This piece in F sharp minor has what's called an ostinato accompaniment. So the left hand keeps playing the same pattern all the time while interesting things happen above it in the right hand. Here's Connections 5 and here is floating. So the first thing is the left hand have a slight drop on the first and third beats of the bar, and here, and fourth there as well. So first bar, first and third beats, second bar, first, third and fourth beats. But all the time you've got these lighter upper notes and these little drops with the wrist. And then that needs to be really automatic, of course, because then you can concentrate all your attention on this incredibly legato. And also that of course needs to be with a certain amount of arm weight because it wants to have a really warm tone. So I'm conscious of the fact that I've got some weight from the arm helping there. And again, I start that triplet with a drop and rise at the end of the phrase and then drop, rise. So all the time you've got the slightly stronger first note and the slightly weaker last note, you might say, of a phrase. The piece builds quite nicely as well, so by the time you get to here, it's really quite intense because, of course, it's a certain amount of tension builds up because of this continual left hand, the ostinato pattern, if you like. And then the piece gradually ebbs away, fades away, gets slower and slower, and you end up with a very peaceful. So it sounds like whatever the piece is about that's perhaps floating on a river has finally come to a stop. Thanks for listening. Do like and subscribe. See you on the next micro lesson. Bye for now.
So that's got us up to grade 5, I think it is. And there's quite a lot of pieces on the Conservatory candidate syllabus leading up to grade 5, of course. And in fact, most of the students presumably will be doing things at those levels below grade 5. But what I'm going to do is look at the syllabus and gradually fill in the gaps, if you like, because there are quite a few pieces from each of those books which we've talked about today, and have a little list on each of them. But as I said, if you wanted to get in touch with me via email, I'm just going to show you this now. And again, just sharing my screen so you can see this. Hang on a minute. Here we go. So if you would like MicroLessons on specific pieces before next week, I'm not saying how many I could get done. You can email me at christophernortonmusic@gmail.com and just say I'd love to have a little sort of micro lesson on this, and I can do a little selection for that. So that I'm actually responding a little bit to what teachers actually could do with. Is that a way to put it?
That's a great way to put it. Thanks for that. That's a great interactive way to do this.
Yeah, I mean, Derek has actually given me a list of ones that I think he found quite popular with the students. So I did that to a certain extent here today, but it'd be quite fun, especially if you've got some which are perhaps some more advanced, because we might just think a little bit about some of the things that come up when you're doing a much more advanced piece as well.
Right. And you've seated us really well here by giving us all the pedagogical insight, talking about the pedal, talking about leading notes, phrasing, all these wonderful things that we have to consider, and that'll get our minds going in terms of what those pieces are. So everyone, feel free to email Chris this week, sooner than later, so that he's got a bit of time, because I think what he's saying is for next Friday's presentation, he can put together a few more on this.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a whole lot of already done, but obviously what I wanted to do is direct them towards your particular syllabus as well.
Right.
It's quite interesting because, of course, like I looked at the syllabus for the ABRSM in London, and I've got 3 pieces on that because I've been very well represented in the past, but they're all quite advanced pieces. And so, one of the interesting things about the micro lessons, I think, and Derek, you might have a thought about this, is I'm playing the performances. I'm actually playing them live. And I think you learn quite a lot from the fact that the composer's sitting there and this is how I play it. I think there's a real authenticity to the performance. I'm not even checking on the speeds. I'm just doing the speed I feels about right.
Yeah.
That'd be quite interesting to see if people might come back to me and say, gosh, that's awfully slow, or that's a lot faster than I expected. You know, I think largely they're about right, but I'm not trying to, I'm trying to do it as I feel the music, if you like.
Yeah. If
And,
anyone has
anyway, I'm going here. There's somebody who's just mentioned Through the Stars, the level 6 conservatory piano book. Now, is that a American public piano piece? I suspect, is it?
I believe that is.
Because that'd be great. Because what I'm saying is it's one that I don't even remember what the piece sounds like at the moment, because it's quite a while since I wrote it.
I wonder if it's To the Stars.
It could
Kim,
be
can
To
you
the Stars, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, Kim, can you remind or
This is
clarify
Hayden.
there? So I don't think we have that piece in the Conservatory Canada book necessarily. The only level 6 book we have is our classical book.
Yeah. Yeah, To the Stars.
To the Stars, yeah.
Yeah. So there's my first piece to do a little lesson on. But you can see how I do them. I mean, this is very much like I work with students, and they find it quite interesting, I think, when you do master classes, that you're talking to them about technical solutions to things.
Yeah.
Like students finding it difficult to get. I mean, one of the big difficulties students face is changing position, isn't it?
Yes.
And what I'm saying is the first note you play of a piece, in a way, you're dropping on the first note, you might say, with the weight of the arm to get it started, like a down bow on a violin. But in a way, you're then replicating that all the time. Any change of position needs to be preceded by being in the air slightly. I think it's the way to put it. And that's a reason why phrases are shaped away, if you like, because you're actually, what you're doing is coming off as you embark on a change of position.
Yes.
And some of the time, of course, I get around that by having changes of finger. That's quite an interesting technique, which I use quite a lot, where you're playing a thumb note and then you're changing to fifth finger or vice versa. So that's come up. And the pedaling thing is interesting as well, because I sometimes only use pedal at a point where I can't join it with my fingers. In other words, I just do a dab of pedal to try and cover my position change.
Yeah.
I mean, these are all common sense things which occur in all classical piano as well, which is great. So I'm saying always to students, you're playing this piece much better. Go back to a piece by Debussy or by Mozart, and you'll discover that, in fact, this is quite helpful for that as well. It's not just for playing my pieces.
Okay, yes. Lorraine's asking if you could do a lesson on boxcar blues from level 5.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've already got one ready for that. Because that appears on more than one syllabus. It's a bit like is it a bit like advertisements or on TV pros where they say other alternatives are available, but I'm not going to say what the name is.
Yeah.
That's right. And Boxcar Blues happens to be on another syllabus in Canada. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you'll see when you go to my YouTube site, everybody, that the first thing I've done is done because astonishingly, I thought I've got 32 pieces on the RCM syllabus, but in fact, of course, I've got more than that on the Conservative syllabus. It's just I didn't realize that you had such a sort of generous approach to these things. So I'm thinking that's amazing. I've got 32 pieces, and then I look at yours and think, wow, it's probably at least double that on your syllabus, you know.
Yeah, we try and put it, well, we try to have wide open repertoire lists that are
Yeah,
very
so I've
vast.
restricted the pieces I've done for them to pieces that are on their syllabus because they're not necessarily saying you can use any piece. They might, but I'm not aware of that.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful that you're the next people up. And in fact, the biggest really project to do for this. So
Just a quick look. I'll share my screen here and people can see what that YouTube channel looks like. Christopher Micro Jazz.
yeah, and there's the micro lessons, which have only been posted up this morning. So you're hearing about something which has literally just gone up. But the other thing which is interesting, Derek, as if you go up the screen a bit again, back to near the front, there's two books here which you might not even have come across, which I really like, but have not entered the public consciousness entirely. They've been out for about 20 years. Lost in Cyberspace and the Final Frontier. Did you know about these?
No, I didn't.
These are Boozy and Hawkes publications. They're probably about grade 2 or 3 at the maximum. One's about computers and the other's about space travel. And so these here, I've got composer performances. These are not micro lessons on these yet. Although I noticed that at least one British examination board has got one of the pieces from the Final Frontier on its syllabus. So obviously they have come up here and there.
Right.
And I'm just saying it's alerting people to the fact there are books which you might not know anything about as well. This is the YouTube side I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But it's quite nice. I've got composer performances like there's Farmyard Blues, but I'm actually now embarking on the idea of doing micro lessons on the pieces as well. So it's really filling in the gaps. And as I say, I may have said this in my introduction, I've just hit over 1 million views on the YouTube site, which is quite good for an educational site, I think.
That's amazing.
And we're heading for 1,000 videos on the site. So it's a huge repository of material, which is only going to get bigger. But it seems to be the way to do it, where people can search for the piece and find a composer performance and a composer lesson on it in due course.
Yeah. Incredibly helpful. And I know when I hear you play these things, I think of different ways of looking at the music or little rhythms that I'm playing incorrectly or differently.
Yeah, I mean, I find it
Remind me.
quite interesting because I know them so well and I know how I want them to be played. But therefore, I mean, the micro lessons are quite a scary thing to do because, of course, what I'm doing is I'm playing a live performance and talking about them all in one take. There's no editing on these, so
Right.
I literally have to go and some of the pieces like Hot Day, which you may have come across from Connections 8, I think. I had to do quite a few takes on that just to play the right notes, you know,
Right.
because
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
start to get quite hard.
Well, everyone, thanks for joining us today. I think that's the top of the hour, and this is a really good first installment to introduce us to micro lessons. And we look forward to part 2 next week with you, Chris, and to see what you have maybe in some of those more intermediate to senior levels.
Yeah. And as I said, I'll make a note of it's To the Stars and Boxcar Blues, which I've got so far. But if any other people listening or if they tell anybody else, that's the idea that I'll try and do those as part of the presentation next week. And of course, Boxcar Blues, I've already got the sort of footage for it. I just need to kind of capture it nicely for Conservative Canada. But I've got the raw footage, if you like.
Okay. And of course, anyone email Chris if you have other suggestions for pieces you want him to include in the micro lessons.
And then it's easy to remember. It's Christopher Norton Music at gmail.com. So that's the email address if you're wanting to ask about that or indeed anything else. Anyway, thank you all for coming. It's always lovely to talk to a Conservative Canada teachers. And I'm delighted to be part of this very innovative syllabus.
Thanks for all your contributions, Chris, and for your time today. And we look forward to next week. Have a great weekend, everybody, and bye for now.
Bye for now.